Trees set ablaze, huge plumes of smoke, clouds laden with carbon and soot. Is this kind of summer really going to become the new normal? Again, a little context to what we are going to discuss today. You might have been reading in the news that recently Nainital has been ravaged. Nainital is a district in Uttarakhand, so it has been ravaged with forest fires. So these forest fires recently, prior to this news, there were also news of forest fires raging in south in the Nilgiris area, specifically in the Kunnur region. So today's session also, like all others, it is going to have a mix of a lot of things: environment, disaster management, geography, mapping, some PYQs, some sample questions. So bear with me. And before we get to the basic, the exact dimensions, we need to understand what is a wildfire. Okay, forest fire is a type of wildfire. A wildfire, bushfire, wildland fire is an unplanned. So, some, if I want to write some keywords, so it is an unplanned, uncontrolled. Okay, and so these are the keywords. If you want to write a definition in your answer, you just need to remember the keywords. You need not remember the entire or cram the entire definition. So, first of all, a wildfire is an unplanned, unwanted, uncontrolled fire in an area of combustible vegetation. Okay, and it can take place in rural as well as urban areas, and depending upon the vegetation present, a wildfire can be classified more specifically as a forest fire. In today's session, we are going to focus majorly on this type of wildfire. And if the vegetation or the ecosystem is, for example, scrubs or brush fire, so there are separate names for those fires. For example, in Australia, we generally call them bushfires. Okay. There are huge scrublands of short grasses. Okay, trees are normally also involved. Then there are hill fires, peat fires, prairie fire. Prairie is a type of temperate grasslands. Okay, in the United States of America. So that is the basic things. Now some harrowing facts that need to be discussed. We'll discuss these questions. So it is on the screen right in front of you. So wildfire, bushfire, wildland fire, unplanned, unwanted, uncontrolled, and depending upon the vegetation that is present, it can be referred to as a forest fire, bushfire, wildfire, prairie fire. So basically, right now we are going to discuss predominantly upon the forest fire. Okay. So before that, I was talking about some harrowing or horrific facts. So there is this FSI, Forest Survey of India, which comes out with the biennial. That is, every 2 years it comes out with the ISFR, Indian State of Forest report. So the latest one is 2021. 2023 report is yet to be released. So out of the entire 24.5% forest cover, including tree cover as well, the FSI says that out of that forest cover, nearly 4%, the forest cover is actually around 21.61%. Adding to the tree cover, it makes it 24.5%. So out of that forest cover, 4% of the forest cover is extremely prone to fire. That is wildfire. Now again, overall, If we say the FSI says that 36% of the entire forest cover in India is prone to fire. Out of that, 4% is prone to is extremely prone to fire, whereas 6% is prone to is highly prone to fire. So there are differences between the various types of forest. That canopy basically means the density which is observed from the aerial position, the density, like if this is a tree, many trees are, so this density which is observed from there, the actual definition of this canopy. So forest area, now trees are everywhere, but when we have to classify a forest, we have to talk about a specific ecosystem or a specific biome. Okay, not all bunch of trees can be classified as a forest, so there is a particular definition of forest cover. So forest cover refers to all those lands more than which are greater than 1 hectare in size and which have a tree canopy density of more than 10%. Okay, so we are going to discuss majorly about that. Okay, the stats, the figures, the mappings will come to that in a while. Now before that, we need to get, like I always have told you, I am interested in the science behind the things. So we have to understand the fire triangle first, then only we'll be able to appreciate why these wildfires have all of a sudden become so predominant and so devastating. So if you remember your class or school science books, so there are three major elements which are required to build and sustain a fire. So one is fuel. Obviously, in case of forest fires, it is not gasoline, petrol, or diesel or kerosene. It is actually the dried twigs, the logs, the dried grasses, the dried fodder. Basically, you know why I am concentrating on this word dried is because whenever some kind of moisture is present, normally what we say, we have to extinguish a fire, we use water. So if some kind of moisture is present in that fuel, so it will hinder the proper establishment of a fire. So that is the fuel that is provided by the forest or the grasses. Then we have oxygen, obviously the basic component. All the living things are basically made of carbon. Okay, so carbon will combine with oxygen to produce CO2 plus heat and energy. So that is predominantly there. 21%, around 21% of our atmosphere is composed of oxygen. And then we have this heat, or the ignition temperature in scientific terms, right? So obviously it is not that if I put a matchstick to any flammable or any normal substance, it will catch fire immediately. No, it has to be at a certain temperature. The fuel, obviously, it has to have properties like it should be volatile, that is flammable. Okay, and it has a certain ignition temperature at which it will catch fire. So why this heat is now becoming predominantly, we have to focus on this. Again, round and round in circles we go, and this we come to again. Okay, so as the global warming, as the overall temperature of the atmosphere of the sun of our earth is increasing, so it is easier to combust or ignite this fuel. Oxygen is always there, fuel is there. The only thing or the only requirement ref is heat. That is also there, because already if we are lighting, if we are igniting it with a spark, or we are actually burning it. So but now what is happening, even the slightest of triggers, now don't another important fact which I want to share with you is that Most of the wildfires, or in this case forest fires, are human made. So they are human made. So why am I again and again talking about global warming? This might come as a surprise to you. This also surprised me because I didn't study it in detail long back. So basically, human made. What happens is the fuel is there, it is dry, oxygen, heat is there. So what happens if an if a lit cigarette or bidi or any campfire, it is not properly put out, so that spark, that flare is sufficient enough to light up this fuel and cause fire. And once the fire is initiated, it takes seconds to spread because the fuel is dry. And what happens if this is a tree, it or grass is set on fire, so then it will catch fire. It catches uh, it catches fire. Then the grass surrounding it will catch fire from this grass, and this process will continue. So this is actually how the wildfire spreads. And moreover, if the conditions are windy, like we have the especially warm winds, hot winds. So don't think that like we blow the candle so it gets extinguished. It does not happen in case of the wildfire. It spreads. For example, if there are leaves, if there are bamboos, if there are bamboo shrubs, if there are herbs. So what will they do? These will, when one plant or one leaf catches fire, it will sway. It is already on fire. It is already on fire. It will sway with the wind, it will move, and the wind will further the next plant in the vicinity adjacent to the plant will catch fire, and this process goes on, and until the whole area is completely, it is engulfed in fire. So that is basically how the wildfire is spreading. So okay, so we are going to do this. So before that, to make things interesting, now just note this question. This was a 2013 prelims question. I'll tell you the reason why I have suddenly put this national parks and rivers in a slide consisting or predominantly discussing about disaster, and that to wildfire. I'll tell you, but this is a means this is a mains question. You can note it down and send to me on my email, and I'll definitely check it and get back to you. So from the point of view of from the point of view of GS1 as well as GS3 as well as optional essay also, so this becomes very important. You can write even if you want to write 150 words, but it should be structured what you want to write. You can maybe if you are lazy or don't want to write, just write. Writing is necessary, so just you can remove the second part and write up to 150 words. That is up to you. Okay. Now, before we come predominantly to India, discussion will be crucifix to India in particular, but we have to know what is going around in the world. So, this region, this is North America. This region is particularly vulnerable to wildfire, the state of California. Okay, so California, it predominantly a large portion is a desert. It is an arid region. It lies although in the subtropical region, but subtropical temperatures are also high. So heat is there, oxygen is there, and a lot of dry trees, coniferous trees, a lot of different types of trees are there. And moreover, the people, the anthropogenic factors, they have also led to the worsening of the situation. Why? Because they are removing the vegetation to build their homes. Have you heard of Malibu? Very common, very common place. It is actually a place in California. All the high celebrities. It is also in Grand Theft Auto, and there's a song of Miley Cyrus also. Anyways, we're not going to discuss that. So basically, what I want to say is all the things are ripe for promoting and sustaining this portion. California, the western part of USA, is highly prone to wildfires. And if you see this tag, European Space Agency, it fire affects an estimated 4 million square kilometers of earth land each year. To put that, half the size of US. If you've studied your NCRT, geography NCRT, what is the total area of India? That is 3.28 million square kilometer. So A land area even greater than that of the area of India is prone to the fire. It is affected by wildfire, right? This region, you know very well, Brazilian region, the Amazon region. Now you might say a lot of rainfall takes place, a lot of rainforests are there, dense canopy. So of course, the fuel is there, the heat is there. It is a tropical region, but the thing now is deforestation is taking place haphazardly on an unprecedented scale. Recently, if you've been following the news, again, Zara, H&M, these brands most of you might be knowing, okay, especially the fairer sex. So actually I'm not pointing out any one particular, but it was reported by one British earth related organization recently. You should read it, very interesting report, that predominantly it is a clothing brand. These two are clothing brands, and clothing brands require raw material, primarily cotton. This cotton, a lot of this percentage of cotton is sourced from the Amazon rainforest. So obviously agriculture is impossible in a rainforest. So lands are being cleared. The tribes are being displaced. Illegal deforestation, illegal felling of trees is taking place. All the trees are being cut down. The natural ecosystem is being destroyed, and the rainfall also due to global warming, and because of this reduction of these trees, this land has not only becoming degraded, but it is also becoming highly prone to wildfires or forest fires. Okay, then 1 or 2 years back, this Mediterranean region, Greece, Italy, all these regions came under the wrath of wildfires. Okay, the temperatures are such, and this is also the Mediterranean Sea. This is an enclosed region. The it absorbs much more heat as compared to the open seas, and this land is also enclosing. Land gets heated up very easily as compared to water, and this land, it becomes even more susceptible to forest fires. This is Australia, this East Australia. Every year or two, especially when the La Nina conditions which cause drought in several areas. In this case, some portions are affected by La Nina, some portions are affected by El Nino. Okay, so El Nino. In this case, La Nina, when the trade winds become stronger, the southeast trade winds become stronger, so they pile up the warm water here. So rainfall, it gives this condition of floods, La Nina. But in case of El Nino, drought-like situation occurs, and due to drought, the vegetation, again, we I called it bushfires, which are normal nomenclature in Australia. Droughts are there, the dry vegetation, high temperatures, and oxygen is there, so susceptible to wildfires. You might have seen the koalas and harrowing and horrific, really harrowing images of burnt koalas, and running for their lives, running helter skelter kangaroos. Trees were ablaze, all that happened. And this region, can anyone tell me what this region is? The Siberian region. Now, how the hell is such a cold region witnessing wildfires? Now, again, very interesting concept. It is an arid region, very less rainfall. It is interior of the continent, very less rainfall takes place. So dry, oxygen is there. Now where does the heat come from? Of course, heat is rising overall. Okay, this will be comparatively at a lower temperature compared to the rest, like tropical and subtropical region. But here the trees, the nature of the trees, they are coniferous in nature, the pine trees, which are susceptible to wildfires. This is the Siberian type of vegetation, the taiga type of vegetation. So they are susceptible. Moreover, they are getting the it is dry, and the temperature, even if some spark, like I said, majority of the wildfires, I'll summarize all these concepts in these slides. But to maintain flow, I am discussing it, I am trying to link various concepts together. So, like I talked about, in India or in abroad, the cigarette or BD, some campfire, or sometimes intentionally also the wildfires are created, fires are lit. Why? Because what happens is, like, stubble burning, you have heard. Now stubble burning normally, like in states like Punjab and Haryana, it is done to get rid of the residue of the crops that has been harvested to save costs. Okay, moreover, it adds, normally if we add some kind of dung or manure or composting to the soil, it takes lot of years to decay and add to the fertility of the soil, whereas when we burn the left out vegetation, then it immediately releases a lot of nutrients. What are we are made up of hydrocarbons, so carbon nutrients. We have a lot of other nutrients, nitrogen, so all these, they immediately go into the soil. So that is also one region by inherently. Then in India, in this southeastern region, we have Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. Here you might have heard of the tendu leaves, the mahua flowers. So this tendu leaves is used for making a local bidi there, a type of cigarette, and mahua flowers is used for making the a local drink. So these things also, the forests are cut and burned down. In northeast, very prominent, the joom cultivation. Okay, so slash and burn cultivation, because the agricultural facilities in these areas is not very advanced. So what the peasants or the farmers do, they clear a forested area of land, they clear a forested area of land to prepare it for agriculture, and after agriculture they use it for a few times until the fertility is there, and then they just abandon it, and then they fell trees in another area, clear it down, they slash and burn the trees to make the soil available, the land available for agriculture, and then they proceed. So that is also not only one major cause of wildfire, but also one major cause of deforestation right now and again. And I am again sure, when the in this year, the 2023 biennial ISFR comes, it is released by the FSI, Forest Survey of India. It will again have this predominant note that northeastern states have shown a decrease in the forest cover. So this is not the only, but because there are a lot of tribal regions here, the tribal percentage is very high, so they have a very close association with the forest. They depend, their livelihood depends a lot on the forest. Now this can again be related, remember Manipur riots, Metis and Kukis. So the Metis are the ones living in the plains, the Kukis and Nagas, these are the tribes on the border areas of the central Manipur plains. They are dependent on the forest. So all this geography, these things are so linked. So I'll just try to restrain myself not to go overboard. So this is the major overview of what we are going to discuss. Fine. So, like I was talking about the forest cover. So trees, this green portion, if you see my cursor, this green portion basically indicates where the forest ecosystem or the forest cover has been determined by the Forest Survey of India. So overall, when you calculate it, so it comes out, the forest cover comes out to around 21.61 percent, and the total including the forest cover, it comes out around 24.56%. Okay, so we're not going to go into that. So it does not mean that trees are not here. Of course, here we have the khair babool, this type of vegetation. Then of course we have, like in the plains also, we have mango trees, we have people trees. But the forest, proper forest ecosystem, the ones we call jungle, that is these areas. Okay, so you can see Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. Okay, entire northeastern region. See Assam, this is Assam, basically it is a plain region. Okay, then we have MP, then we have basically the peninsular region. Here we have Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, and then Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. So in the news recently, or it has been established by various scientists, the geoscientists, that these portions, These states which I have marked on the right, I have highlighted these states so that you may remember some of them. So some of the places which are highly vulnerable to wildfires. So these are the states, basically Maharashtra, this western Maharashtra region, this Konkan region, okay, close to the coast. This is the Konkan coast. Then we have this western Karnataka region. Okay, these are also prone to wildfires. This I am talking about. This normally, the rest of this I am, this red region is highly, includes highly and extremely fire prone, that is the 6 and 4% area respectively. I'm not talking other forest, the entire this forest cover is in one way or the other vulnerable to wildfire, of course. Various factors are there, but we are talking about mostly the serious or the severe type of fire. So this Andhra Pradesh, central Andhra Pradesh region, this northern part of Telangana. Okay, here we have the forest region, Chhattisgarh, this region. Then here also in MP also, some parts are highly prone in Odisha also, this region. Okay, then as we go towards the northeast, the entire most of the region, this northeast here, this is Meghalaya. Then in Tripura also, Mizoram is really very vulnerable. And now this, like I was talking about, when I see the maps now, I discover very interesting things. Now here in the map, this this region, sorry, this region, this boundary region, which mainly consists of the forest, this is highly and extremely prone to wildfire. This region is less prone because it is a plain region. Similarly, here also we have the Assam Brahmaputra Valley. So here again we have Nagaland. So Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, and in Arunachal also some regions are there. Then of course in this region. Nainital again caught in the crosshairs in the lower southwestern part of Himalayas. Also, we have this wildfire prone areas. Fine. So this is what the recent news, and you should be aware. Whenever you are asked to write a mains answer, especially, you should be aware of some of the areas which you can draw and mark in the map, so that it becomes better for the examiner. It makes your answer stand out. Fine. Okay. So basically, now if I further try to follow the NCRT and demarcate the area of the different types of forest to give you a better picture, to try and make you link the various aspects. So basically, the deciduous forest, deciduous are the which shed their leaves in after in the dry season. So deciduous, if I try to mark an approximate boundary of the deciduous forest, just follow this. So this region, this you will come across, or you might have come across, those who are preparing in the NCRT, the region of the deciduous forest. Again, deciduous forest consists of both moist and dry deciduous forest. From the environment and prelims point of view, you should know about the examples. Fine. So normally this area, this in between, this is the deciduous forest, which consists of the tropical, moist, and dry deciduous forest. These forests are most vulnerable to the fires, the forest fires, because they shed their leaves, they are dry in nature. Unlike this coastal region, normally in NCRT they mark this entire as the evergreen forest, if you see in the NCRT. But here also it is a mixture. It is a biodiverse, high biodiversity region. Lot of tropical rainforests are there. The scrublands are also there in between, and some deciduous forests are also. Similarly, here also predominantly the semi-evergreen forests are there, but it does not mean that there are no deciduous forests. So this red area which I was talking about, it consists of the deciduous forest, highly susceptible and prone to wildfires. So now, like I discussed, the first why I mentioned the prelims question. Now, recently in the initial part of the discussion, I talked about the wildfires in the Nilgiris, and specifically the southern parts are now much in news, and they are time and again questions are being asked either in prelims or in mains also. So in order to save time, I'll just go back to the previous. Here it is not very visible, so I'll try to draw it then. So this Nilgiri ecosystem, some places of interest and importance, some national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, and there is one species which is endemic to the Western Ghats, that is the forest ecosystem of the western part of India. So that is always time and again in news. This time it is known as the Nilgiri Thar, okay, or the so that place, this particular individual. So this Nilgiri Thar recently, it was in the news. Why? Because the government has again resumed its efforts to conserve it. It is in the IUCN list of endangered species. Very important. And the for the from the prelims point of view, they keep asking this conservation relation related questions time and again. So you should know it. So that is why I it becomes imperative for me to discuss these some national parks and some biodiversity areas, and especially which was the area which was in news. So some biodiversity areas. So now I think it is clear this is Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and basically we are talking going to talk about the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. So Biosphere Reserve, again, conservation area on a large scale. It helps in conserving entire biodiverse regions. So some tiger reserves important. I'm going to mark, and this mapping I can easily show. I could have easily shown you the map, but this mapping makes it interesting also. And for me, I have experienced during my preparation days that it helps in remembering things in a better manner. So first of all, what I want to focus on is that this entire complex. Here we have the I have not shown the topographical map, but this is the Nilgiri region. Nilgiri is basically in Tamil Nadu, but this Nilgiri hills, which act as a connection point between Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. So this entire is the Nilgiri. It is Nilgiri Biosphere Region, Biosphere Reserve. It is also in the UNESCO Man and Biosphere Program. Okay, so this is entire green shaded portion. It encompasses areas of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, as well as Kerala. So some important places. And recently the forest region where the forest fire took place. Okay, so this is basically this yellow small yellow region is Ooty. Now it is Uddagamandalam. The second highest peak of southern India, that is Doda Beta. It is located here. This region here, this is the Kunnur forest region, which was in the news for the forest fires. Then this is Nagarhole Tiger Reserve. This is Bandipur Tiger Reserve. Okay. This is this here. This is the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary in Kerala, also famous for elephants. Here below we have the Silent Valley National Park, again in Kerala. So now you understand, in the question they had asked the rivers, match the river flowing through various national parks. Silent Valley was also there. Here adjoining Silent Valley on the side of this Tamil Nadu, we have the Mukurthi National Park. Here near the border of Karnataka, we have the Mudumalai National Park. Okay, so all these regions are included in the Nilgiri biodiversity region. Okay, so that is important. Okay, another important fact, since we were discussing about the world, just a brief fast current affair. We know that the one of the 50 states of South America is located far away, 2,400 miles from California, in this place. Can anyone tell? So this is a group of volcanic islands, shield volcanoes. So these are Hawaii. So even a tropical island like Hawaii bore the brunt of wildfires last year. They were very. Now you can read the article again. If I start discussing, it will take some. Okay, so what happened was, one region, there are a lot of plantations, bamboo sugarcane plantations. The entire tourism, all the places were ravaged. They were destroyed in the fire. Okay, it was like no one can imagine. So one was the aridity conditions. High aridity does not mean that you, if a place is surrounded by water, it is going to be humid, and no, as long as the three conditions are met, the wildfire is makes any place vulnerable. Moreover, one interesting factor why I wanted to discuss was the presence of a hurricane during last year when the wildfire took place, Dora. So it created low pressure conditions around these regions. So this low pressure made the winds which were blowing through this region very high. Okay, very fast winds were blowing, and like I had discussed earlier, winds normally don't compare the wildfire with the flame of a candle. It cannot be blown away by just a whisper or from our mouth. But these winds, they help in spreading, not help, they enable the spread of the wildfires. So this was an interesting concept. Now moving forward, so this I hope is useful for you from the prelims point of view especially. Now we'll quickly just wind up, because major of I told you in the starting that we are going to summarize at the end. So just try and pay attention here. So high wind, natural causes. High wind, just keep in mind the three conditions, they have to be there. And now the causes. So low level, high speed wind speed direction, high temperature, low level of moisture in soil, and duration of dry spells, drought prone areas like during the La Nina conditions of Australia. Then there is in there is this wind, warm local wind blowing down the mountain in California Valley, the Silicon Valley. It is surrounded by two ranges. On the east side, we have the Rockies, and on the west, we have the Sierra Nevada and Cascade Range and all that. So the Santa Ana is a warm local wind which blows. You'll read this in the NCRT. Lightning strikes. All is what is needed is a spark. El Nino and La Nina. Indonesian forest fires example. Okay, so lightning, I've given the icons. El Nino, basically this is a symbol for La Nina. La Nina is Spanish for little girl. El Nino is Spanish for little boy. So they are counterparts of each other. Then friction, like described, that when the wind blows, the friction between leaves or other twigs or fodder, it take haystacks, it takes place, and it causes high wind velocity, causes this spread of fire. So even rolling stones, okay, I'm not talking about the band, but stones, due to friction, they make cause a spark and cause fire. And stratospheric warming in Antarctica, this might sound somewhat strange, we're not going to discuss, but in order to make your answer diversified, you need to remember some out of the box examples. Anthropogenic, again, this is anthropogenic is nothing but an synonym or other word for human cost. So change in land use patterns, I've already talked about the cultivation in Northeast India, tree plantations in Indonesia, cotton cultivation. This I have picked because I have been following the news recently. So that H&M and Zara brands, you should be aware, Pine forests produce Maduka indica, mahua flowers, and leaves of Diospyros melanolexylon. So this is the tendu. Tendu Tendu vegetation. It is also known as the Indian ebony. Okay, so these villagers, they venture in, and to obtain several products, they clear the forest. Then we have discarded cigarette butts. Okay, good quality grass like stubble burning. I gave an example, but stubble burning is occurs in farms, not in forest. So forest, like for shifting cultivation, also they don't have access to the high quality facilities, fertilizers and seeds. So sometimes when they slash and burn, this provides the nutrients also. Then illegal cutting of trees, poaching, warding of wild animals by the villagers. So all this can be easily summarized for you to remember. Role of climate change. So droughts, I've already discussed Australia. Then climate change. Now what happens? You might have know about these cumulonimbus clouds. Normally, what these cumulonimbus clouds, in brief, I'll tell you, these are high vertical extending clouds. Okay, so normally these are rain bearing clouds. The thunderstorms and the rainfall which occurs in our country or during monsoon other region, no, mostly it is like these thunderstorms which take place. So these are caused by the cumulonimbus clouds. So climate change is producing more pyrocumulonimbus clouds formed on top of the heat sources. So these clouds. So what exactly is happening is, if I try to draw it in the form of a diagram. So basically, what happens is ice is melting. The greenhouse, basically the global warming, we all attribute to GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. The heat is increasing, more wildfires are raging, more emissions are taking place, the glaciers, the ice is melting again. Then these, they get lit on fire, they become vulnerable when wildfire occurs. Then what happens, they release more black clouds in the more greenhouse gases. This is basically carbon. Okay, the living organisms, more carbon dioxide, more greenhouse gases, and then the again temperature increases. So it has now become a vicious cycle. This is called a climate change feedback loop. Okay, so this is the concept. And Siberia and Russia, like I told, the winters are there as compared to Delhi or whole subtropical tropical regions of our country. It is very cold, but climate change is causing winters to become shorter and weather become drier and windier. So don't think in the traditional way. Try to, if you have the basis of the science, that is why I started initially the lecture with the fire triangle, the three essential requirements or prerequisites for a fire to take place in the first measure. And this, finally, to complete the structure, control measures. This also I've tried to make it interesting. So fire line, I don't know whether, so this is an example I'll just explain to you with the help of this diagram. So what happens, that initially, just imagine there were forests here, there were trees here. So what has been done in this trench, this space has been dug up in the middle, so that for example, if this the fire is spreading towards the right, from left to right, the trees are catching fire slowly. When the fire reaches in this area, now it will become devoid or bereft of any kind of fuel, the fuel is lost. So automatically this will obviously be affected, but this will not cross over to this, the fire will not be able to spread across this fire line to the other side. And NDMA, the National Disaster Management Authority of India, it has demarcated two types of fire lines in practice like this. One is kacha and one is pakka. Just for information, kacha is when, pakka is when all this region, this trench or this fire line is entire vegetation, the undergrowth, the shrubs, herbs, all of that is removed. So pakka, it is like a firm thing. Kacha is like some of the undergrowth is left there, only the major portions, the trees, the the fuel stock, which is highly or extremely prone to fire, only that is removed from this region. Okay. Then we have national policy, national plan, forest fire management. Okay, so we have rating system, firefighting tools, fire beaters, Pulaski tool, forest fire shovel, Bambi bucket. There was a separate article on this. So this orange bucket, there is a special type of bucket which allows the concentrated concentrated and copious amount of flow of fire. This is a special type of bucket. If I take ordinary bucket in which we all take bath and I just flip it over, so what will happen? Don't think that it will fall. The helicopter is moving. Moreover, the helicopter is in the air, not on near the ground. It is far away, relatively away from the. So it is a possibility that if a normal bucket is used, the water will evaporate even before reaching the ground, and it will not be able to impact the burning fires with so much force as to douse the fire. So that is why this special bucket is used. Pulaski tool, again, I was inquisitive, so it was written in the text, but I went online and checked what exactly is this. So it is a combination of two types of tools. One is an axe and one is a hoe or axe. So if I try to draw it, so basically axe you have seen. So this is the handle, and this is the axe, and on the other side there is a hoe. There is a digging tool. I cannot really explain it to you because 3D diagram would be required. So one side is axe and one other side is the hoe. So both the chopping and digging work can be done simultaneously with a flip of the hand by the firefighters. Then we know community participation. Obviously, if you don't are out of points, you don't are thinking, you are not unable to think of anything to write an answer. Just bring in stakeholders, NGOs, voluntary organizations. It is a very important point. Normally we are taking it in a very lighter way, but these like watchtowers to watch. Okay, so creation of early warning, again this is a like these terms like GIS, remote sensing. So satellite, again we have achieved great strides as far as our space program. So now remote, this is like an example of an area which has been ravaged by wildfires. A lot of fire scars are there. So these can be easily studied from the aerial view, from the satellite imaging, remote sensing, and the geospatial geo imaging satellites, to provide a framework or to provide a sort of chart to plan out future probabilities of wildfires. Okay, so these are the control measures. And with that, I would like to conclude today's session. Till we meet again next time, Jai Hind.